Hi, Tracy.
Good morning. How are you?
I am good. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you so much for taking some time to speak to me about your experience. What do you feel are the main challenges when buying property, especially interstate?
Yeah, so I think what we realized was we were doing a lot of research around where we wanted to buy an investment property, which part of the country to buy in. And because we started out looking at the whole country, it was a bit overwhelming because really didn't know where to look. And then even once we had narrowed down into Southeast Queensland, we didn't necessarily know the suburbs. Like we kind of been to the area a couple of times, but we didn't know the ins and outs of which are the right suburbs, which are the best ones, what's happening in the market, where to avoid. And so, we could have been browsing on real estate, looking at different properties, and the property might look good on paper, but you just don't have that local knowledge, especially when you're working interstate, to know um, you know, whether the property that you're looking at is as good as it looks on paper, and if there's a reason why that place is 50,000 cheaper than the other place, not just what's around, but the kind of things that when you live in a neighborhood and live in an area, oh well, that's cheap because of this, or that's expensive because of that. When you're interstate, like it's just so hard to find that kind of information, and so yeah, I think that was one of the biggest challenges that we were noticing we were facing, just trying to arrange things from afar.
Why did you decide to use a buyer's agent?
Yeah, well, I think so. A couple of different reasons. So one is that for the local knowledge and expertise, but also, when we bought our principal place of residence a few years ago, we also used a buyer's agent, and we had such a good experience that time that we wanted to do it again. And I think um, realizing that often the when it comes down to the negotiation for a particular property, where we live in Sydney, almost everything is listed for auction originally, but very few things ever go to auction. They're all sort of negotiated beforehand. And we realized in this instance in Sydney that we wouldn't know like what the right amount to put in an offer that would buy the property, like what the right strategy. And you kind of feel that when you're dealing with real estate agents, they have all the power and all the upper hand. So they're like asking you questions to try and sort of figure out where you sit, where your budget is, and if you're going to negotiate yourself, you have to sort of find this balance between being authentic and genuine, because you need to work well with these people and have a good relationship and not look like you're playing them. At the same time, every piece of information you reveal to them gives them more power to either use you to like drive up the price with some other potential buyers. And so having a buyer's agent takes you out of that situation and puts an expert in. So when you were negotiating for the property we bought, we didn't have to worry about you know how many times would we go back with different offers, like what was the right level that would buy the property. And so having the confidence that we could put our best foot forward in the offer that we would make is another key reason, I think.
Remember, the real estate agent is legally obligated to work for the seller. Those ethical and legal obligations to look after the seller. Uh, it's great to have representation for the buyers. Why did you choose me as your buyer's agent, Phil?
Yeah, so once we decided that we were interested in looking in the Brisbane area, we just started doing some research on buyers agents in the area. And I mean, it was as simple as we came across your website, reviews of you. We read a few of those reviews. They were all really glowing and really positive. And so we reached out. We were originally going to plan to reach out to a few different buyers agents. We're the kind of people who, get multiple quotes for everything. And we reached out to you first. And I remember when we had the like first intro chat. After that, I didn't reach out to anybody else because having sort of read what we read about you online, and then having had that chat where it was like, this is just a chat with somebody who may or may not use your service, but you spend 45 minutes with me, giving me all this advice, giving me all this guidance, telling me, like being honest with me about what you thought my budget would and wouldn't buy, what you thought, like, the strategy should be. And the fact that you were so, like, forthcoming and invested the time and were just so honest and friendly, that gave me such a good vibe of what it would be like to work with you. And so after we got off the call with you, we just said, like, well, actually, this is what we're looking for. So, like, the price seems reasonable, like it seems in line with what we've kind of researched. And in terms of the personality, like, I think we would gel and vibe, because that's also so important, because I've had experiences with other buyer's agents maybe that we haven't gone with in other places, like in Sydney when we were trying to buy our place. Sometimes you feel like the buyer's agent has got, like, okay, like, I've got your brief, this is what you should buy, so, like, I'm just going to tell you what to do. And, like, I think for both Omar and me, like, we like to be quite hands-on, we like to be quite involved, like, we wanted not to just, like, outsource the decision to somebody, but to have the expert and be part of the team. Like, we were always going to spend a lot of our time and energy doing it, looking at things, saying, what about this? What about that? And I just got a vibe from the beginning that was going to work with you, that was going to gel. And so, yeah, that was what led us to go with you.
We certainly had a lot of fun.
Yeah.
And it was very quick too, Phil. It was very quick. It was in a week that we had something amazing.
It was kind of crazy. It was like we had that first call on a Tuesday or Wednesday, I think. And then I called you back on the Friday and said, okay, let's get going. You got us all set up on the Friday. And then even, like, in the evening on the Saturday, you were already, like, texting or sending things. And then by, I think it was the Monday, we already sort of knew the place, and then we were sort of making offers and had the offer accepted on the Tuesday. So when you told us about the timeline, you said, it's 1 to 4 weeks. We were like, oh, that's amazing. Like, let's hope it's more like the 1 than the 4. But it was like 3 days in the end, which is just incredible, because I think, part of what helped us get there so quickly, you helped us really quickly go on this journey of figuring out what are we going to get for the money that we could spend, where and why. And that gave us the confidence to see that the property that you had put forth to suggest for us, when we kind of just quickly looked at, like, what else is available, what prices are things going for in that kind of suburb, other suburbs, we went through this process where even after you presented that property to us, we'd said, okay, we kind of like this by the look of it, we think, but we're not sure yet of whether this is everything. So we were bombarding you with, like, okay, here's 20 suburbs we've looked at. And then we had a call where we went through and you told us about all of those suburbs. And then we were like, what about this on real estate? What about that on real estate? And you were, like, saying, yeah, but look at this power line here, or that's really next to the motorway. And so we just went through this process very quickly of helping us get to a point where we could see and believe for ourselves that the property that you'd found originally was a standout deal. And so that, I think, it could have very easily, like, I think if you hadn't done that, like, if you hadn't been, like, as willing to jump on the call and go through, like, okay, let's talk to all your suburbs, or let me look at these properties really quickly, it might have been that we'd have lost that deal, because we'd have been sort of, like, still wondering about all of those things. So I think helping us clear away all of our questions and get really clear on why this property, like, it's all very well you saying to us, this property is a really good deal, but I think we have to sort of see and understand that for ourselves. And I think the fact that you managed to get us through that so quickly meant that deal was still on the table. Like, if we'd have taken a week or 2 weeks, like, that property would have passed and we'd have been looking for the next one. So I think that was So it wasn't just the luck of the timing that you got that property in 3 days. I think it was what you did like to help us get ready to buy the property in 3 days.
The networks definitely help. Having those networks means that I do have a pipeline of properties coming through. And it was great that that really fantastic property came up so quickly. But you listened to me and you had a lot of questions. And that was great because you have to feel comfortable about the purchase. And so I remember you did a spreadsheet up with all your suburbs and all your questions. And we did. We spent a long time going through each of those questions and then addressing those concerns that you had. But you entrusted me to advise you, and you knew that I had the experience to know what I was doing, and I really appreciate that. What surprised you the most about working with me? Was there anything that was just like a pleasant surprise?
I think the biggest pleasant surprise was like the way in which you kind of set everything up as a way of showing the funnel of where things are and be able to manage all of the information. So when we had bought our property we live in Sydney, and then we were looking at potentially moving a few months ago, and we engaged another buyer's agent. So I've had like 2 other buyer's agent experiences, and in both of those, it was very much like, here's this property, what do you think? And you look at that property and it's like a yes or no on that one, and if it's a no, it's like on to the next one. Whereas what I loved was you could sort of see that there were like many things coming into the pipeline and many things coming in, that what that allowed us to do is, what I loved about that situation was, if you were saying you were discounting properties for a particular reason, that we would be able to see that, and we could then say, well, actually, wait a minute, why did you discount this? Like, we had a different view, and then we could then talk about that, and that might have helped you to either educate us more on what we're looking for or not, or refine our brief. Whereas if buyers agents only show you the property one at a time of the one they think that matches, the experience that we had in Sydney was sometimes we'd go through 5, 6, 7 different properties, and then we'd be like, okay, you keep showing us things that are too much like this, but why aren't you showing us this? And it would maybe be that they thought that that wasn't what we were looking for. And maybe because the brief hadn't been like so clear in the beginning, or maybe our brief had evolved as we kind of saw more things. And so I think laying everything out in that really clear way it's about sort of transparency of the process. It's about working as a team. Yeah, I really like that system.
Oh, fantastic. You have to feel comfortable with the purchase. It's a big decision, so you need to know that you're buying the right property. So I think it's really important that you are showing the process, and then you're 100% sure with what you purchased. And what we got was great. Couldn't be more happy. Did you always feel like I had your best interests at heart?
Oh yeah, totally. I think, yeah, I mean, completely. Like, I feel like you really understood what we were looking for. You were giving us good advice. But even, for example, when we decided to make the offer on the property, we were talking about what the right level was to go in at. First offer, presumably, the higher the offer, the more likely you are to secure the property. And so if you were just trying to get a deal closed, like, you could have very easily just told us to put in a higher offer. But when you said to us, actually, let's start with this and see where it takes us, that made us feel like you definitely had our best interest in heart. Like, because if you were able to save us 5,000, like, that's 5,000 money we save. And like, because one thing I think is always a bit of a worry if you go with even with any buyer's agent is, the buyer's agent, obviously you live on your reputation, but you have a relationship with me once, and you have a relationship with the people you're buying from 10, 20, 30 times. And so you always kind of have this fear, I think, of like, are they really going to be in my corner, when they could play that they're in my corner, but like, they could be doing like nice little deals on the side with these real estate agents. So it's a question of like ethics and integrity. And so I think that getting a really good sense of somebody's integrity in this is really important, especially, the real estate industry doesn't always have the best reputation for that kind of thing. And so that was a really important thing that I think, like I was saying before, around the vibe that we got from you and the trust that we built. I think that was so crucial to really feel like you were in our corner.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's number one for me, is to have the relationship with you and to make sure that I do the best job for you. I mean, apart from being legally bound, it means a lot to me to be able to negotiate as hard as we can, and to get those little extra things that we put in the contract conditions as well, which moving forward make it a little bit easier for you with regards to getting tenants and whatnot. So for me, that's a given. That's just my character. That's just my personality. I do this to help people. That's my why. I want to help people. I want to get them the best possible outcome that I can. What do you think would be the single reason that you would recommend me to others?
Yeah, I think I would recommend you to others where they're looking for somebody who is really going to work with them and create a team together. I'm sure also, like, if there were people who are just much more hands off, you would be amazing in that scenario as well. And maybe other people are like that. But I think sometimes it's harder to find the right person for where you're going to be hands on as the buyer as well. And so for somebody who's like wants to like still be doing some of the work themselves, looking for things, like being really involved, having a buyer's agent who finds that like beneficial, who finds like, great, like we're a team, like we can all work together on this, rather than like we're somehow like micromanaging you or like getting like in the way of your process. Like I think for someone who is looking for a buyer's agent who can work with them in that way, I would really recommend you.
I don't
But I mean,
see.
to be honest, I mean, if anyone says to me, "Do you know somebody in Brisbane who can help me buy a property?" I recommend you for anyone.
Thanks, Phil. It's not a cookie cutter approach. You're right. Some people do want to be a bit more hands-on, and they want to know why we're going to get to the outcome that we get to. They want to be part of the journey, whether it's just to ensure that their money's being spent correctly and they're purchasing the right property, or just whether they may just enjoy the process. They just might want to be a part of it. And then some, you're right, are hands off. They may just want to say, look, this is my budget and this is what I want, and you go and find something for me. And then you've got the locals and you've got the interstaters and you've got the expats as well. So it's really important. I see it as really important to be able to listen to what level of participation the client wants to go in for, and then adapt accordingly. Oh, that is so fantastic. Thank you so much, Phil. Is there anything else that you want to highlight?
Because like I was saying before, when you're trying to find out for something, you do your research and so on, but like at the same time, it's hard to really know because everyone knows these days that everyone goes on like online reviews. Like when you see somebody who's got loads of 5-star reviews, you don't really know like what that means, because lots of businesses like just tell their best clients, write me a 5-star review. So you just don't really know. But when you can actually see what people say, like, if somebody watches this and then they hear the sort of things that we talked about, they can decide for themselves, is that what they're interested in or not? Like it's just a bit more real than 3 lines of a review on Google.
Yes. And you don't want a property purchase to be a leap of faith. You don't want to kind of tick 7 out of 10 boxes and then cross your fingers for the rest of it, because it's high risk. It could actually be the worst mistake you ever make. So it is important to get that information and to hear firsthand. And social proof is excellent, and I appreciate all your kind words, Phil.
Yeah, no, you're very welcome. You're very welcome. Well, good. Well, we're looking forward to the settlement. Yeah, thanks so much, Tracy. It was really nice to see you, and hope the video was useful for you. And looking forward to being in touch around settlement.
Thank you so much.
Okay, take care.
Thanks, Phil. Talk to you soon. Bye.
Bye.